What do you do when your heart is broken? What do you do when your lover is gone? Who do you turn to when life is so empty? What do I do now that Jerry is gone? I can't believe that this really has happened. Somehow it's like an awful bad dream. One day you're up and your world is rosy. Then the rain comes and the dark clouds appear. I made a promise to never forget him. I said I'll wait until he comes home. Now I'm not sure I can keep my promise. 15 years is a very long time. What do you do when your heart is broken? What do you do when your lover is gone? Who do you turn to when life is so empty? What do I do now that Jerry is gone?
When he arrived at the prison, the first thing that attracted Jerry's attention was the sentence over the door. The way of transgressors is hard.
All thieves and wicked people know it's right out of the Bible. It's a well-worn proverb, repeated in all the haunts of vice, and one that is confirmed by daily experience. And yet how strange it is. Knowing the way is hard, the transgressor will still go on it.
Sing Sing Prison was no country club. It was located on the edge of the Hudson River, about 30 miles north of New York City. The cells of the prison were like coffins, 3 feet 3 inches wide, 6 feet 7 inches high, and 7 feet deep. There were no windows in the walls that the cells faced. The sun never reached in to penetrate the gloom and damp of the cells. There was no plumbing, just a bucket. 1,000 buckets that filled and stank. It was cold and damp in summer and icy in winter. The men were dressed in horizontal stripes. Wherever they would go, to work or to the dining hall, they always marched in lockstep with their left hand on the shoulder of the man in front of him.
For 2 years, not a word could be said against me. All the keepers and guards spoke well of me. I learned carpet weaving as well as to read and write. I had a pile of cheap novels they let us have to read to pass away the time. They even supplied us with a Bible. Often I would think about escaping from prison, and my heart would fill up with murderous intentions toward the man who put me in. But then I grew weak and sick. I'd been used to the open air always, and a shut-in life told upon me. And then I got ugly and thought it was no use. I became at times uneasy and intractable, and they punished me as they did all the men who disobeyed the rules. but that only made me harder and harder. But there were lighter moments. The topic of conversation of my fellow prisoners revolved around who had the longest sentence to serve. The more time you were serving earned you a distinction, a reputation of sorts. The man serving 1 or 2 years could hardly compare with those who were serving 20, 30, or 40 years. These men were held in high esteem by the others. And if you were serving a life term, well then you were the cock of the walk. It was amusing to listen to them bragging about it all the time.
Hey, Soapy, how much time did you say you were doing?
Who, me? I'm doing 20 years. How much time you doing, Slim?
Heck, I got you beat. I'm doing 30 years. Hard labor.
20 years. 30 years. Do you cons know how much time I'm doing? I'm doing 40 years.
Wow, that's twice as much time as I'm doing.
Oh, yeah? You think that's something? Who's got 20 years? Who's got 30 years? Who's got 40 years? That don't mean nothing to me. I'm doing life.
Whoa, holy smoke.
You heard me. L-I-F-E with a capital IFE.
Who's got 20 years?
Who's got 30 years?
Who's got 40 years?
That don't mean nothing to me. I'm doing life.
Who's got 20 years? Who's got 30 years? Who's got 40 years? That don't mean nothing to him. He's doing life. I got 20 years. I got 30 years.
I've got 40 years.
That don't mean nothing to him. He's doing life. Who's got 20 years? Who's got 30 years? Who's got 40 years? That don't mean nothing to him. He's doing life.
The one thing that helped me keep my sanity were the letters I received from Maria. True to her word, she wrote to me every week. Uplifting letters, full of hope. Be strong, Jelly. Take courage, lad. All will come out well in the end. It got so that I began to feel guilty about it. It wasn't fair, I thought, that she should be tied down to a man that is caged up like an animal, and would remain so for years and years. Why doesn't she find herself another man, I thought. One day I decided I would write her a letter and tell her to stop waiting for me. Maybe if I said nasty and insulting things to her, she would finally give up on any future with the likes of me. I sat down at a little table and I began to write when some of the men passed by and asked,